Welcome back to Dodger Stadium. We continue our countdown to the finale of the series between the Nationals and the Dodgers, and every year it's a treat when we come out to Los Angeles to visit with the longtime broadcaster of the Dodgers in his 62nd season, of course, Vin Scully. And Vin, before you joined the Brooklyn Dodgers back in 1950, your first career stop brought you to the nation's capital. What are your memories of living in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, they were very, very pleasant memories. They still are. I was at WTOP, AM and FM. I was the summer replacement announcer. As each went out on vacation, I assumed all of his duties. So for a young kid just off the college campus, it was a marvelous experience. Got to be good friends with Arch McDonald. And Arch was doing the Washington Senators games, and I would be working at night, and all of a sudden he'd call me and he'd say, do my show. And, of course, I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I had met a lady who was looking for a house sitter, and I wound up living in Georgetown. And just to date the story, the Secretary of Defense was across the street. And that was a rather marvelous moment for me, to be that close to the power and at the same time do what I love to do.
Well, now, as of course the voice of the Dodgers, playing the Nationals, and there's some connections between these two franchises with the current coaching staff, with Jim Lett, the bullpen coach, and of course the manager, Davey Johnson, who recently rejoined the managerial ranks, and his last managerial job was with the Dodgers. Were you kind of surprised to see Davey get back into it after 11 years away?
Well, I was a little frightened, to be honest, because I knew that Davey had had serious abdominal problems, a lot of surgeries. I wasn't sure if he was physically able, so the first thing I did when the ball club came here was go down and spend quite a time just visiting with Dave and talking about his wife Susan, and Dave talked about the fact they're now living in Georgetown. So I told him, go by and see if my old house is still standing. But that was my only concern. And I asked him point blank, are you strong enough? And he said yes, and I really enjoy it. He's not sure whether he'll work next year or not, but I know he'll be associated with the Nationals for several years to come, and the ball club will really profit by that.
And kind of jumping around topics here, this is a great celebration for our sport this weekend with the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies in Cooperstown. And can you kind of take me back to the memories when you were inducted and received the Ford C. Frick Award for Excellence in Broadcasting? What are your memories of that weekend?
Well, probably the number one memory was the fact I had so many members of my family there, many of whom have since departed. So I was grateful to share that moment with all of them, including my mom and my sister. Also, probably the number one memory in the old days where they did it out on the porch, and there was a room behind the porch, and all of the Hall of Fame members were in that room. Now, here's a kid who grew up in New York with the Polo Grounds and Yankee Stadium and Ebbets Field, and all of a sudden I'm sitting in a room looking at some of these men whom I had seen play or manage, like Bill Terry, and it was overwhelming for me just to be in that same room. Then, of course, when you go out there as an announcer, I think more is expected of you with your speech. So you can't suddenly break down and cry. You can't suddenly go blank. If you're a ball player, it's understandable. They'll talk about, he's emotionally overcome. But with an announcer, you had better not be emotionally overcome. So all in all, it was a great day. But as I said, the most important thing was to share it with my family.
Present day, as far as it's been a tough year for the Los Angeles Dodgers on the field, but even more so off the field. What has it been like for the fans out here, trying to get behind this ball club with all that's happened and seeming like there's not as much attention on the field where it should be because of what's happened off the field?
Well, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know how people are thinking. I do know there's a strong feeling right now that the troubles connected with the team have affected the fan base, that's for sure. Of course, there's nothing like winning. And sooner or later, you would assume the organization will get back to its successful ways, and perhaps, it's only a word, it'll be in the next couple of years. Otherwise, it's going to be a major undertaking, and somehow they're going to have to get rid of the feeling in town I know Washington, for instance, has a young ball club, and everybody is very optimistic, and rightfully so. I mean, you'll get Steven Strasburg back, you'll bring up Bryce Harper, you'll have all these kids who apparently are very, very good. There's not that feeling here, so it has to start from the bottom up, and that's going to take a while.
I wanted to ask you a question about our business. You've been in it now. This is your 62nd year with the Dodgers. How has it changed broadcasting baseball games on the radio? I read a comment from Bob Costas recently that he felt young announcers in radio today are influenced by television because that's what this age group has grown up watching, maybe not as descriptive. How has this business changed over the years with the influx of information and all the things like that?
Well, I'm not sure whether Bob is correct or not, because, to be honest, I don't listen to other broadcasts. I have no idea whether the new broadcaster is influenced. I have none whatsoever on that. I do think that there's a trap for any broadcaster. Number one, if you're very young and you're just starting out, you probably would have a tendency to imitate, which is not good. We would all do that. I know when I started, Red Barber laid down the law, in a sense, saying, I don't want you to listen to other broadcasters, because somehow it will take away the one thing you bring into the booth, which is yourself. But at the same time, as a young announcer, you don't have the confidence to be yourself. You keep reaching and groping to find the answer for longevity in this business. The other trap would be we are overcome with information. And unless you're very, very careful, you'll wind up reading numbers and miss a play on the field. I think that's like the song of the Lorelei, luring you onto the rocks. So you have to be very careful about that. But I really don't know about ball players, as opposed, because they have suddenly come into the business as the analyst, what that effect it has. I just don't really know.
Vin, it's always you're always very gracious with your time with us, joining us on the pregame show again. And you're right to say that there's only it's tough to if you've listened to you, you don't want to imitate you. There's only one Vin Scully, and we appreciate your time as always.
Oh, bless you. Thank you, Dave. It's a privilege and a joy to be able to know that somewhere back there in Washington, D.C., somebody might say, oh, yeah, I remember that kid.
We got to find out if that house is still standing. That's the legendary voice of the Dodgers, Vin Scully. We'll hear from the manager, Davey Johnson, right after this on the Nationals Radio Network.